I didn't lose you. That would have been easier to explain, easier to survive. Losing someone has an ending, a clean cut, a before and after. What happened here didn't end. It spread. There was a night. I remember it too clearly. No music, no calls, no distractions pretending to matter, just a dim light cutting across the room, and me sitting there, staring at nothing like it owed me answers. I told myself that was the night I'd finally let you go, and I meant it. No dramatics, no messages I'd regret, no looking back at old conversations like they held some hidden code. I was done negotiating with ghosts, but something strange happened in that silence. You didn't resist. You didn't fight to stay. You agreed, and that's when it shifted, because I wasn't pushing you out anymore. I was making space, not in my life, in me. That's the part no one talks about. They tell you time heals, distance fixes, new people replace. That's comforting. It's also a lie. Because sometimes, letting go isn't removal, it's absorption. You ever notice how the people who impact you the most don't just leave marks? They change your structure? The way I make decisions now, there's a hesitation that wasn't there before. Not weakness, not fear, just awareness, like a second voice that doesn't ask for permission. Yours. And I hate admitting that, because I built myself to be untouchable, precise, controlled, the kind of man who doesn't carry unnecessary weight. But here you are, embedded, not as a memory I revisit, as something that reacts before I do. I catch myself mid-sentence sometimes, adjusting what I say, not because I care what anyone in the room thinks, but because I know what you would have noticed. Do you understand how dangerous that is, to not even be present and still have influence? It's not romantic. It's invasive. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Part of me let it happen, because holding on to you like this feels better than facing what it means if I don't. That maybe you were never as permanent as I believed. That maybe what we had wasn't strong enough to survive outside of memory. So instead, I changed the rules. I stopped trying to keep you in the world and let you become part of mine. Not consciously, not with intention, but slowly, quietly, effectively, like water seeping into cracks until the structure shifts. And now I can't separate what's mine from what's yours anymore. That confidence people see? Some of it is mine. Some of it is built on things you once said. Things I didn't even realize I kept. The boundaries I set? The way I read people faster, trust slower. That's not just growth. That's residue. Tell me something honestly. Have you ever tried to move on and realized you weren't leaving them behind? You were becoming someone shaped by them? Because that's the part that doesn't get closure. There's no final conversation for this. No moment where you move on and everything resets. It just integrates, quietly, until one day you wake up and realize you don't miss them the same way anymore. But you also don't exist without what they left inside you. And that's where it gets complicated, because if you're still carrying them, are they really gone, or did you just find a way to keep them without ever having to say it out loud? I still don't know which one scares me more. Power doesn't protect you. That's the lie I built everything on. You see the results, the precision, the control, the way I walk into a room and everything adjusts without me asking. I've spent years refining that. Every move calculated, every reaction measured. I don't get caught off guard, at least that's what I tell them. But there's a moment that keeps replaying in my head. Late evening, glass walls, city lights stretched out like something I owned, the kind of view people associate with success. I was standing there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, going over numbers that would change everything by morning. I should have felt unstoppable. Instead, there was a pause. Not external, no interruption, no distraction. Internal. A question that didn't belong in that room. Is this enough? Or is this just what you settled for after losing something real? I didn't say it out loud. I didn't have to, because I knew exactly where it came from, and I hated that. I've trained myself to eliminate noise, to cut through emotion like it's a liability. That's how you win. That's how you stay ahead. You don't hesitate, you don't second guess. But this wasn't hesitation, it was influence. Yours. And that's where the illusion breaks. Because power only works on things outside you. People, systems, outcomes. It doesn't work on what's already inside. That part, I never learned how to control. There are moments, small, almost insignificant, where it shows up. I'll be in a conversation, reading someone perfectly, knowing exactly how to steer it, and then something shifts, not in them, in me, a thought, a comparison, a standard that wasn't there before you, and suddenly, what should feel like an easy win feels empty. Do you understand how frustrating that is? To build a life where you can have almost anything, and still feel like something is missing that you can't replicate? Here's the uncomfortable truth. I've met people who are easier, simpler, less complicated, people who don't challenge me the way you did. People who don't make me question myself, and for a moment, That feels peaceful, but it doesn't last. Because peace without depth starts to feel like silence, and silence, after a while, feels like absence. So I create more, achieve more, expand faster. Not because I need it, but because it's the only thing that drowns out the comparison. That's the part no one admits. Success can become a distraction, a very effective one, but distractions don't erase anything. They just delay it. And eventually it catches up, usually at night, always when it's quiet. There's this specific moment, right before sleep, where everything slows down just enough for the truth to slip through. No audience, no performance, just me, and the version of myself that doesn't lie. That's when the questions get sharper. Did I build this life because it's what I wanted, or because it's the only way I knew how to move forward without you? Did I actually grow, or did I just become more efficient at avoiding what I lost? And here's the part I don't say out loud. Sometimes I'm not sure if I'd recognize myself without that loss, because so much of who I am now came after you, built on top of it, around it, because of it. So where do I end, and where do you begin? That question doesn't have a clean answer, and I don't like things I can't solve. Tell me, have you ever become so good at controlling your world that you forgot what it feels like to be free inside your own mind? Because that's the trade no one warns you about. You gain everything externally, but internally, something stays unresolved. And it doesn't break you, it just stays quiet, patient, waiting for a moment of silence to remind you that no matter how far you go, you're still carrying something you never figured out how to put down. And I've started to wonder, what happens if I stop trying to control it and actually face what's underneath? Because if I do that, I'm not sure what I'll find. Winning didn't feel like winning that night. That's how I knew something was wrong. It was late, past the hour where the city pretends to sleep but never really does. My place was quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the silence was waiting for me to notice it. No calls, no screens. Just a dim light in the corner and the reflection of someone I barely recognized in the glass. I had everything lined up. Every move I made that day landed exactly where it was supposed to. People would have called it a perfect execution. So why did it feel like I just lost something I couldn't name? I poured a drink, not because I needed it, but because it gave my hand something to do, something controlled, measured, predictable. That's when I realized control had become a performance. And I was the only one left watching it. I sat down, leaned back, let the silence stretch longer than it should have. Most people avoid that moment. They reach for noise, for distraction, for anything that keeps the mind from turning inward. I didn't, and that was my mistake. Because when there's nothing left to manage, nothing left to fix, nothing left to win, you're forced to face what you've been outrunning. It didn't hit all at once. It crept in. A thought here, a memory there. Fragments, not enough to confront directly, but enough to destabilize everything I thought I had under control. And then it happened. Not a breakdown. Not some dramatic collapse you see coming from a distance. Something quieter. More precise. I lost my certainty. Do you understand what that means for someone like me? Certainty is everything. It's the foundation, the edge, the difference between leading and reacting. And in that moment, it slipped. I questioned things I don't question. Choices I made without hesitation suddenly felt incomplete. Not wrong. Just missing something I couldn't recover. And the worst part? There was no one to blame. Not you. Not me. Not timing. Not circumstance. Just a realization that didn't care about logic. I sat there longer than I should have. The drink, untouched now, forgotten. My mind moving in circles it couldn't close. And then came the thought I didn't want. Maybe I didn't lose you when you left. Maybe I lost something in myself that I never noticed until now. That's the kind of truth that doesn't ask permission. It just sits there. Heavy. Unavoidable. Here's the uncomfortable part no one admits. We like to believe we recover fully. That we rebuild stronger, smarter, better. But what if that's only partially true? What if some losses don't weaken you? They reshape what you're capable of feeling. I've been in rooms since then. Important ones. Loud ones. Rooms filled with people who would trade everything to be where I am. And I perform perfectly. I say the right things. Make the right moves. Deliver exactly what's expected. But there's a layer missing. A depth that used to be there without effort. Now it's calculated, constructed, and I hate that I can tell the difference, because it means something in me changed in a way I can't reverse. Let me ask you something. Have you ever realized you're still functioning, still succeeding, but not experiencing things the way you used to? Like there's a version of you that felt more alive, and you don't know how to get back to it? That's where I am. Not broken, not falling apart, just operating differently. And the scariest part? No one else can see it. To them, I'm sharper than ever, more focused, more controlled, more effective. But they don't feel what's missing. They don't hear the silence behind the noise. And maybe that's the real collapse. Not losing everything, but losing something internal so quietly that the world keeps rewarding you while it's happening. There's no alarm for that. No moment where everything stops and forces you to deal with it. It just integrates into who you become. And you adapt, because that's what I do. I adapt. But lately, I've started to question whether adaptation is just another word for avoidance. Because if I keep moving forward like this, if I keep building on top of something I never fully faced, what happens when there's nothing left to distract me? What happens when the silence comes back? And this time, it has more to say? I thought I was healing. That's the word people use when they want a clean narrative. Progress. Closure. Something that makes the story easier to live with. But that night proved something else entirely. It was quiet again. Different room. Different city. Same kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. I had just come back from a long day, the kind where everything goes exactly as planned, every decision sharp, every outcome precise. I should have felt settled. Instead, I stood there in the middle of the room, not moving, like I was waiting for something I couldn't name. That's when it hit me. I don't miss you the way I used to, and for a second, I felt relief. Because missing someone is heavy. It pulls on you, distracts you, makes you weaker than you're willing to admit. But that relief didn't last, because what replaced it was worse. I wasn't missing you. I was carrying you. Not in obvious ways, not in memories I revisit or conversations I replay. That would be simple. That would be manageable. This was different, subtle, embedded, permanent. I walked over to the mirror, caught my reflection mid-thought, and there was this moment where I couldn't tell if the way I was looking at myself was mine or something I learned from you. That's when the discomfort set in, because it meant you didn't leave. You integrated into the way I think, the way I measure people, the way I hold back in moments I used to lean in without hesitation. And here's the part I don't like admitting. Some of it made me better, sharper, more aware, less naive. But it also made me colder in places I didn't intend. That balance, it's not something I chose, it's something I adapted to, and I'm not sure when adaptation turned into identity. There was a moment later that night. I was sitting down, going through messages, conversations, opportunities, the usual. Everything looked good on the surface, but I caught myself pausing, analyzing something simple for longer than necessary. Not because it was complicated, but because something in me was filtering it through a standard that didn't exist before, yours, and I froze. Because that's when the realization became undeniable. You're not a memory I revisit. You're a lens I see through. Do you understand what that does to someone? It means every new experience is influenced by something that's no longer here. Every connection, compared. Every decision, adjusted. Not consciously, not intentionally, just automatically. And the uncomfortable truth? I don't know how much of me is still untouched. That's not something people warn you about. They talk about heartbreak like it's an event, a phase, something you move through and leave behind. But what if it's not? What if it's a transformation? What if the person you were before doesn't come back? Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your own reactions and realized they don't fully belong to who you used to be? That something, or someone, shifted your baseline so deeply. You can't separate it anymore? Because that's where this gets complicated. I can't blame you for it, and I can't undo it. So what does that leave me with? A version of myself that's evolved, but not entirely by choice. And here's the part that keeps me up. If I've been shaped by something I didn't fully control, then how much of who I am now is actually mine? I've built everything on ownership, control, intent. But this happened quietly, without permission, and now it's everywhere. In the way I trust slower, in the way I detach faster, in the way I recognize patterns before they even form. It's efficient, it's effective, it's also isolating. Because once you see things that clearly, you can't unsee them, and that changes how you connect, or if you even want to. Sometimes I wonder, if I met you now, like this, would I even let you get close? Or would I recognize the impact you'd have, and walk away before it ever starts? That thought. It doesn't have an answer yet. And maybe that's the problem, because if part of me would choose distance now, then what does that say about everything I became because I didn't choose it back then? I'm still trying to figure out if this version of me is stronger, or just less willing to feel what made me strong in the first place. I don't think I'm trying to move on anymore. That's the part I didn't expect. There was a time when everything in me was focused on forward motion, new places, new faces, new energy. Momentum felt like control. Like if I just kept going, fast enough, I could outrun whatever this was. But lately, I've slowed down. Not externally. The world still sees the same pace, the same execution, the same results. Internally, something shifted. There was a night, not dramatic, not heavy, just quiet in a way that felt almost intentional. I was sitting in a room I chose for its simplicity. Clean lines, no distractions. The kind of space that reflects discipline. And yet, it felt incomplete, not empty, edited, like something had been removed, not by accident, but by design. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a second longer than usual, and there it was again, that subtle awareness that nothing I step into now feels untouched. Every beginning carries a trace of you, not in a way anyone else would notice. They'd call it experience, growth, maturity. But I know the difference. Experience sharpens you. This filters you. There's a hesitation now, a quiet evaluation that runs beneath everything. Not fear. Don't mistake it for that. I'm not afraid to connect. I'm precise about it, and precision has a cost. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When you've felt something real enough to change you, everything after gets measured against it, whether you want it to or not. And most people don't pass that measurement, not because they're lacking, but because they're not you. That's not fair to them. I know that, and still, it happens, automatically. Tell me, have you ever met someone who, on paper, was everything you should want, but something in you stayed quiet? No spark, no pull, no disruption, just compatibility. And somehow that felt more unsettling than chaos ever did? Because that's where I am now. I can build something stable, predictable, easy. But easy doesn't reach me anymore, and that realization, it complicates everything. Because now the question isn't, can I move on? It's, what does moving on even mean? When part of you refuses to disconnect. I used to think closure was about understanding, figuring out what happened, why it happened, what it meant. Now, I think closure might be a myth people cling to because the alternative is harder to accept, that some connections don't resolve, they just transform into something quieter, deeper, less visible, but still present, like a low signal running in the background of everything you do. And here's the part I don't say out loud. Sometimes I don't want to lose that signal. Not because I'm holding on to you, but because I'm not sure who I am without what you left behind. That's not weakness. That's identity conflict. Because if I strip away everything that came from you, the awareness, the restraint, the depth, what's left? A version of me that might be lighter, but also less? That thought doesn't sit well with me. I've built too much, become too much, evolved too far to question my own foundation. And yet, here we are, standing at a point where I have to decide something I never prepared for. Do I keep carrying this, knowing it shapes every connection moving forward? Or do I find a way to let it go and risk losing parts of myself I've come to rely on? Because it's not just about you anymore. It's about what remains if you're no longer part of the equation. And I don't have a clean answer for that. I don't even know if there is one. All I know is this. Every time something new begins, there's a moment, just before it fully unfolds, where I feel the comparison, not loud, not obvious, just enough to remind me, this isn't untouched, and maybe it never will be again. So let me ask you one last thing. If someone becomes part of how you see the world, are they ever really gone? Or do they just disappear in a way that makes them impossible to replace, but just as impossible to release? Because if that's true, then what I'm facing isn't about moving forward. It's about deciding whether I'm willing to live a life where every future connection exists in the shadow of something that never actually ended. And I still haven't figured out if that shadow is protecting me or quietly keeping me from something I haven't even allowed myself to feel yet.